Hey everyone, my name is James and I'll be walking you through the generative process for our animated treadmill fitness friend. Here we can see the friend walking on a treadmill. We can see that the treadmill is in front and behind the character. We can also see that there are shadows. And if I click on one of these other GIFs, we can see that the accessories will change. And the accessories actually have shadows. So the water bottle and the skateboard. The skateboard has a shadow layer. So this is all using a generative engine that basically finds different combinations of the layers and stacks them on top of each other. This is just one example of the poses and of the accessories that we're going to have at Fitness Friends. We're doing some really, really cool stuff with our art. And as our slogan says, come for the art and stay for a better, healthier self. So a little bit about myself. I'm James, the founder and full-time dev of Fitness Friends, where we're trying to use cool 3D art to bring a unique perspective on wellness to the Web3 space. I'm a UC Berkeley grad with 5 years of experience in the industry, ex-tech lead of a finance firm in New York, and I love building open source tools like this generative engine that'll basically help bring your NFT collections to life. I have a 30-minute video linked below that walks through all of the features and the tool and how to set it up, all for free, so you can check that out. But I'm really just going to focus on how we use the layers to generate this walking treadmill friend. So let's dive right in. First, I need to pull up the terminal, then I have to look at the layers. So while I'm walking through the layers, I'm actually going to run one command and it's going to actually regenerate everything. And why I'm doing that is that you can actually see it all happening live. So the command is make all batch, and I'll talk about what batching is later. But this takes a few minutes because of the high resolution and the number of accessories. So I'm just going to look at the global config and then walk you through the layers. So here are the layers. We have 6 layers. We have accessory, background, friend, hat, hoodie, and shorts. So the accessory has 2. The skateboard and the water bottle. So the skateboard has its own shadow layer. We could have attached this with the other layer, but we found it easier to keep the shadow and the object separate. And this has this Z index on top of it. This is basically what Z index the layer is going to be on so that we can have layers on top and below. And this allows us to have the treadmill in front and below the other objects. So we have the shadow and the skateboard, which is animated. So this is basically a stop motion frame of the skateboard. And this was created and exported by our amazing artist, Luca, who did all this in Blender and then was able to export each frame. And then we have the same thing for the water bottle. We have a shadow and we have the water bottle. Now looking at the background, we have the back of the background, which is just the gym. Then we have the back of the treadmill, and notice that the Z index is Z2. And then we have the front of the treadmill, which is Z5. So this will appear in front of the skateboard, the shadow, and all the other layers. Then we look at our friend. We have a friend who looks like this, animated, with no clothes on, with the shadow attached. We could have made the shadow a separate layer, but in this case, it was actually easier to have the shadow attached to the body. And then the clothes will be randomly generated on top. And then looking at the hat, we have the headphone, which slightly moves based on the wobble of the head, and the ice cream, which also slightly moves, wobble on the head. Then we look at the hoodie. We have 2 different hoodies. We have a gray and purple one, like this. Super cool tie-dye pattern with our logo in front. And then we have the shorts, gray and purple. You'll notice this number next to it, the hashtag 50, this specifies the rarity. So right now we're just doing 50/50 for all of the accessories. But in the future, we could actually specify a rarity scale. And we're going to have some really cool legendary traits. So be sure to follow our Twitter and keep a lookout for those. So once you have the layers, what does the tool actually do with those layers? The tool takes those layers and then converts them into sprite sheets. That's what step 1 does. So now each one of these layers is now a sequence sprite sheet. In this case, it's hard to tell because it's a shadow, but here's a more obvious example. Or with our friend, that's even the most obvious. And then we look down at step 2. This takes those sprite sheets, and this is where the magic happens. This actually generates all the possible combinations as a sprite sheet. I'll zoom in a little bit, like this. And then step 3 takes all of those sprite sheets and turns it into a GIF. So we look now at build, and it's actually done. These are GIFs. So a few things to call out. I'm going to go to this global config. I'm not going to go through all of these. You can watch the 30-minute video to explain what all of these are. But some important ones, the height and width, 1000 by 1000 frames per second and number of frames. We have 40 frames. We have the output type here. So the tool actually supports GIF and MP4. I just added MP4 so we can save this and I can rerun it. Just the last step, which turns the sprite sheets into the output. And then it'll generate into MP4s. And then these 4 features are what makes my tool very unique. The fact that it can support hundreds of frames is because I actually batched them into batches of 20. So right now, the existing step 2 JavaScript code is limited by 32,000 pixel width. But right now, I batch the 40 frames into batches of 20, and then I do 20 at a time. And that actually took a bit of time to figure out how to do that. But now it will work for, if we wanted 100 frames, we could still batch a number of 20, and it'll just take a little longer, but it'll all work, as we can see here. And then multiprocessing, so a lot of other tools out there with this high quality GIF and with that size and with the number of layers would take hours to render 50 or 100. But my tool can do this 4 to 8 times faster because of the fact that I'm taking advantage of multiprocessing, which is the ability to use multiple processors in your computer's CPU. So that's why when we actually look at the output here, it's doing 8 at a time. It's doing 0, 1, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all at the same time. So these are 2 helpful optimizations that allow us to make really, really good high quality GIFs. And as we just saw, this finished to convert it to MP4. So here's the MP4. It doesn't loop automatically, but this is a much smaller size, and you can upload that to like Twitter, and it's only 2 megabytes versus each GIF is about 7 megabytes or 6 megabytes. Awesome. Well, that's a quick rundown of the tool. Definitely give me a follow on Twitter at @Jalagar_ETH and follow our project for a ton more really unique examples of generative art. Thank you, and hope you have a great day.